But we begin tonight with a public appeal for missing British backpacker Grace Millane.
She's usually in daily contact with either her mother, myself, her two brothers.
Anybody who has seen Grace, please come forward and tell us.
With social media, there's always a dark side to it.
A narcissist, sociopath.
On behalf of New Zealand, your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that.
Is the man a calm and calculated killer, or a young man who panicked after a sex act went wrong?
Did you kill Grace?
We met when we were 10 years old, just starting secondary school together. And from the off, she just seemed like a really bubbly, kind, caring person. We spent sort of all of our break times, lunch times together. She was always looking after me. She was always the one to take care of everyone else. Like just our big group from sort of school and college. She used to bring her camera everywhere, whether it was to a party, to a festival. Grace used to love taking photos. We sort of built a friendship and remained friends until we were about 18, 19 and just went to different universities. She was telling me all the, going out and the freedom and all the friends that she'd made.
Yeah, we met online, we matched. I think I swiped her first, she swiped me. Then she messaged, hey, how are you? And we were speaking for like a few weeks. She was in Lincoln, in university. We arranged to meet there. She was very polite, she was very kind, but she didn't hold back from like taking the mick. I felt like we had a little bit of banter.
What's it like?
She showed me some of her portraits when I was at her dorm. I was impressed. We did have plans to like meet each other in Essex. But she then did say that she was wanting to travel. She was saying she's just doing this by herself. I thought that was very cool.
Around here is actually when I went on the kayak trip. So that was the day I met Grace. New Zealand's a beautiful place. It's the most picturesque thing you could ever imagine. It's a very safe feeling place as well. Grace was just like everyone else you kind of meet when you're backpacking. You're all out there for the same adventure. I kind of continued exploring. I didn't feel like I'd seen enough. Grace went back to Auckland.
A lot of people do online dating when you're travelling. That's how a lot of people meet nowadays. And it can be a quick way to find someone that you maybe have some interest with. You know, you can quickly like talk to them and have a phone call, whether say, I'm travelling here, could you show me around here? Yeah, I'm sure for Grace, that was definitely a comforting thing.
It was just after lunchtime. I'd walked down into the crime squad office, which is the floor below where my office is, and I was talking to their detective senior sergeant, and she actually said, we've got a missing person complaint come in. The missing person complaints themselves are not unusual. Maybe she's gone on a trip somewhere, gone out to one of the small islands out off Auckland, is out of phone contact, and we're going to find her. But this was different.
I messaged her on Snapchat saying happy birthday, hope you're having a lovely time. And, you know, not getting a reply for a few days. I didn't really think much of it because I knew that she was travelling. When it came out that she hadn't, you know, responded to anyone, hadn't called anyone, I think that's when sort of the worry started to set in.
The fact that on her birthday, she hadn't contacted her family and the family had not been able to contact her. That was a huge red flag.
One of the girls from the group, she messaged me and said, have I heard from Grace?
There are obviously people at the backpackers who realised she was missing, were concerned. I actually got off the bus down the bottom of the city. I see some missing person posters already on lampposts. Time was the essence. We needed to get onto this.
We begin tonight with a public appeal for missing British backpacker Grace Millane. Grace hasn't been seen or heard from since Saturday evening in Auckland. Do you suspect foul play?
The longer this goes on, the more concern there is.
I have worked on missing overseas tourist investigations previously. I knew just how much the international media would grip this up.
One of our reporters flagged up that a 21-year-old Essex girl had gone backpacking on her own in New Zealand and she had gone missing in Auckland. We took a deep dive into exactly what had happened. Grace is one of our own and we need to make sure that we do as much as we can to try and bring her home.
We actually did a video appeal to try and find her. The social media reaction has to be some of the biggest I can remember.
Whether it was news articles, regular Facebook posts, getting her face out there.
People felt like they connected with it, not just us journalists, the whole community, especially from her area.
It was a really big thing in Essex. I remember being in the car on the way home and it was on the radio. You know, getting home, it was on the news.
I remember just scrolling down. I saw a picture and immediately knew it was her. And my heart sunk.
Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter.
People's social media accounts are always important in this day and age because a lot of the young people live on social media. So getting into her Facebook page and seeing what she'd been doing was crucial. Trying to identify when she came into New Zealand, what she'd been doing in New Zealand, where was she staying. We'd found on Grace's Facebook page, the last person to comment was from a Jessie Shane. Now, we didn't know who that was. One of the staff Facebook messaged Jessie Shane. Then he gave his real name, which was Jessie Shane Kempson. The next day, he contacts the police.
So today's date is, it's Thursday the 6th of December. The time is 3:26. Okay, so here's the microphone here. Okay. All right. Tell us about Grace.
Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December. Grace started this travel journey in Peru in South America, and at the end of this was really looking forward to the second leg in New Zealand.
Grace's family has launched a social media campaign urging people to report any sightings.
The police investigation today has concentrated around her movements. A large part of that focus has been around CCTV footage. We'd found on Grace's Facebook page, the last person to comment was from a Jessie Shane. His real name was Jessie Shane Kempson. The next day, he contacts the police.
It's recording now.
I've been in this room with you, I think, since the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
Just written down your details.
Yeah.
You were spoken to by
Yeah,
Detective Hames and
Yeah.
Detective Jordan.
Yeah.
That's in relation to a young lady, Grace Millane.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's her there. You recognise her?
Yeah.
Okay. At that point in time, he was just a person who'd had a date with her the previous week. We didn't know when she'd disappeared exactly. So that's Grace. She was 22 on the 2nd of December, just her birthday.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yes, so we talked about that, yes.
Okay. He presented well in the sense that he was wearing a three-piece suit with a hanky popping out of his collar, which is not something you ever really see in New Zealand.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday. I saw a message from her saying, hey. So I messaged back saying, hey, how are you? How's your day going? I got a reply, great, yeah, in travelling around New Zealand, blah, 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 blah. She was staying at Party Backpackers, and she told me that she was going to be spending her birthday out there the next day.
At the time that interview was taking place, we had an investigation team doing a lot of work, and one of the phases is the CCTV phase, which is critical in Auckland City.
I started on the investigation on day one. I was tasked straight away as the officer in charge of CCTV inquiries. Initially, we just started watching from the Saturday afternoon. It was footage that needed to be reviewed minute by minute.
I said, I know it's quick but do you want to catch up for a drink? And she said, yep, cool. She asked me where. I said Sky City. And then we met. I gave her a hug, she gave me a hug. And then we decided that we were going up to Andy's Burger Bar.
One of the really good things with the Sky City footage is a multitude of cameras, and effectively every area is covered. We can see how they're interacting with each other, and effectively, from a visual point of view, how the date appears to be going.
She said, oh, I'm from Essex. I said, is that near Geordie Shore? I had no idea where that was. And she said, no, it's just out of London. I said, oh, cool, yeah, sweet.
Whose idea was it to go to that particular burger place?
Me, because I didn't initially know that she was real.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of, so have you heard of catfish?
No.
So catfishing is where someone uses your profile, or uses your photos and pretends to be you and then meets, and you're a completely different person.
Right.
And it's happened to a few people I know in Australia. And it's all over the TV. So I thought, you know what, if I meet at Sky City, at least I know that there's lots of people around. So if it is someone that it's not, then I can just walk away.
Throughout the interview, some of the things early on were a little bit odd, but some people are odd.
How does meeting in a public place sort of protect you from?
Well, there's security there. So if she wasn't who she said she was, at least in my mind, I'd feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you tell her about yourself?
I just told her where my family were from. I told her what I did for work. And then that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her if she's visiting Sydney, and she said she'd love to.
How did the evening pan out?
Yeah, pretty good.
How did the evening sort of come to an end?
There was a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and a thanks, nice meeting you.
So at this point, you guys are heading in the direction of Victoria Street.
Yeah, to the crossing. Yeah.
The crossing.
Yeah.
So you cross over, and then you've parted company at around about 8 p.m.
Yeah.
When they get to the opposite side, there's a point where Grace has the option of going to the right and heading back to her accommodation at the base Packbackers, or heading towards City Life Hotel, where Jesse Kempson stays.
And then you walk towards Queen Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she walks towards the base. It was the intersection.
Yeah.
So I just crossed. That would have been the last place I saw her.
Okay. And you've parted company at around about 8 p.m. by your account.
Yeah.
Where do you walk?
I go down Queen Street. There's a pub on Queen Street.
And how many drinks do you think you had in that place?
I would say 10.
10?
10.
Okay.
After that, I remember waking up the next day.
What time was that?
I woke up 9, 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. Look, just want to sit tight for a few minutes. I'll just have another quick chat.
Okay.
How are you off for water?
That's fine. Hey, I just want to ask a question. Have I been arrested for something I didn't do?
Never been arrested.
We got to a point where we knew during the interview enough CCTV had come through that actually pointed out that he'd been lying to us on one specific point.
As it turns out, Grace continued on with Jesse. They enter into one of the lifts at the City Life Hotel and head up to level 3 where Jesse has his apartment. This is the last sighting that we have of Grace.
Just after 3 p.m. this afternoon, a 26-year-old man was located at a central Auckland address by police and is currently speaking to us in relation to Grace Millane.
I first met Jesse Kempson in August of 2016. Myself and my 2 friends were looking for someone to fill the 4th room in our house. So we posted an advert on a Facebook group and he responded. He was charming. You know, he had the stories and this life that he'd lived. He was really chatty, really nice, lovely, really. His father owns all these restaurants in Australia and he was coming over to expand the franchise. All the stories sort of didn't seem real. He eventually said he was buying a certain restaurant in Auckland and I know the owner. They weren't selling. A couple of weeks later, I went to the restaurant to have dinner and he was working behind the bar. He left the minute he saw me and never returned to work. We just all started getting a bad feeling. One night when I wasn't at the house, neither was one of my other flatmates, so it was just the one girl left alone in the house. He came back, he was drunk, and she was scared enough that she slept with a knife that night. We eventually stopped wanting to be alone in the house with him. You just knew you shouldn't be near him alone. It does make you wonder, like, what else he was hiding or what else wasn't true.
So you said that you met with Grace at the burger place?
Yep.
And you've parted company at around about 8 p.m. by your account?
Yep.
You said you woke up in your apartment at about 9 or 10 a.m.
Yep.
on Sunday morning?
Yep.
And you knew that was the time because you checked your phone?
Yep.
Is that you?
Yes.
That's you?
Yes.
Okay. That picture, that picture is in your hotel lift.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. You haven't told the truth.
Is there something you want to ask?
Now, we know he's a liar. He was very comfortable and plausible in his lies. And he's very believable, and as I say, he looked very professional. CCTV shows that she met him at Sky City, went to Andy's Burger Bar. She goes with Kempson across to the Mexican cafe, then goes to a bar called the Bluestone Room, and then up into his apartment. But we didn't have any evidence that he had done anything to Grace. Yes, he had lied to us, but that's all we had, him telling us a lie. Because we don't have the evidence, the law in New Zealand isn't that we can detain someone for 48 hours. We either have sufficient evidence to charge them or we have to release them. So he was released. There's no sign of Grace. There's no sign of any of her property. That Thursday night, we arranged for a search warrant for his apartment at City Life Hotel. The forensic scientists were going to test Kempson's apartment for blood. And they used a chemical called luminol, which they spray. Luminol will react with blood and it will glow in the dark. When you see the inside of Kempson's apartment and you see the luminol, which is indicating all the blood in that room, you go, oh my gosh, what's he done? The Google searches that Kempson did on his phone became important because it timed when those searches were. So we know that around 1:30 a.m. he was searching for hottest fires, pornography. We also received more information that his phone had been polling out in the Waitakere Ranges on the Monday. The Waitakere Ranges is about roughly 20 k's from the centre of Auckland City. So I met with the head of our search and rescue team because we would need them for assistance to search through those ranges.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
We had one final drink at Andy's Burger Bar. And then we decided to go to the Mexican place across the road for cocktails. We went from there down to the Bluestone room. We ended up sitting out in the foyer area with the fresh air. Most of the time we were sitting there, we were just kissing. I remember leaving Bluestone. I don't know what time we left there exactly. The next thing I remember after that is being in the room with Grace. She started talking to me about 50 Shades of Grey, which is a sex fantasy movie. We started having, I guess, violent sex, and then she told me to hold her throat. And then at that point, we'd finished. All I remember is falling asleep in the shower. I woke up the next day. Initially I thought Grace had left, and I saw that she was lying on the floor. I saw that she had blood coming from her nose. I screamed, I yelled out at her, and I tried to move her to see if she was awake. And that's when I panicked because I couldn't hear, and she was cold.
It's a total contradiction to what he'd said in his first interview. His second interview was all self-serving. a narcissist, sociopath, and we'd worked out that everything he'd said in that first interview basically was a lie.
Did you consider seeking help from St John's?
I dialed 111, but I didn't hit the button because I was scared how bad it looked.
You said you didn't know what to do. Why did you purchase a suitcase?
Because I was freaking out. I went to the warehouse at the atrium and brought a suitcase. I remember putting Grace in the suitcase. I was just in shock the whole time. I put Grace in the back of a hire car. I drove the hire car into Wilson's car park. I sat there for a little while, praying. I picked up a shovel. I ended up driving towards the Waitakaries. I went into the bush. I dug a hole.
He's trying to clean up, and we know from CCTV that he went and he bought cleaning products.
What did you do with the bleach?
Sprayed the floor and tried to dab up the blood.
Can you remember when you disposed of her clothing and property?
No.
He packs all her belongings into a black plastic bag and he walks through the city up to a place called Albert Park, and you see him depositing that black bag into a rubbish bin.
We're going to head out of here very, very soon, and you're going to take us to where you've buried her?
Yeah.
We located a body which we believe to be Grace. The formal identification process will now take place. However, based on the evidence we have gathered over the past few days, we expect that this is Grace. Obviously, this brings the search for Grace to an end. It is an unbearable time for the Millane family, and our hearts go out to them.
Any questions? Yep. To your knowledge, did Grace die while she was in your company?
To my knowledge, I would say yes.
And at any time and at any stage, did you intend to cause her death?
No.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. Jesse Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December. You understand?
Yep.
Okay.
And what we know is that Kempson strangled Grace for 7 to 10 minutes. That's not rough sex. That's murder.
The trial of the man accused of murdering the British backpacker Grace Millane has begun. Ms Millane went missing on the eve of her 22nd birthday last December while she was in New Zealand. Her disappearance sparked a massive police investigation and her body was found buried in the Waitakere Ranges a week later.
The man's defence team said it was entirely plausible the young woman accidentally died after he choked her during sex with her consent and encouragement.
Members of the jury, the defendant has pleaded not guilty.
She started talking to me about 50 Shades of Grey, and she told me that there's a few things she likes doing.
Miss Millane died as a result of what they consensually engaged in during their time together.
Personally, I think the rough sex defence is horrendous. I don't see how anyone could ever use that as a legitimate defence. For that to actually be an excuse for how someone died is atrocious.
It doesn't matter whether she was having sex or not, or it doesn't even come into it. The only thing that's important is that he went into that room, she went into that room, and only one person came out of there.
Only 2 people know what happened in that room. One of them can't tell us, and the other one hasn't told the truth about what happened.
The defendant had to have had her under his grip at some point of which she lost consciousness and he had to carry on. And if that's not reckless murder in this country, ladies and gentlemen, somebody will have to explain to me what is.
I have real difficulties with the proposition that having rough sex kills people. Rough in that context has to mean that you hold that person around the neck with a degree of force where you have to maintain that for what's probably minutes. The person probably goes unconscious, probably remains lifeless under your hold, and then you have to carry on. It's much more likely to be about what's going through the bloke's mind and his attitude towards that woman than it is to be an accident of rough sex.
Is the man accused of murdering British backpacker Grace Millane a calm and calculated killer, or a young man who panicked after a sex act went wrong?
Kempson pleaded not guilty to the murder. He put the blame on Grace, said it's an accident through rough sex, that she wanted that, and that he panicked, which is totally contrary to what he was doing in those early hours of that Sunday morning, the 2nd of December, and later on during that day. We had to make sure we secured all the evidence we could.
Next morning, 8 a.m, Jesse heads down to the foyer and exits the hotel and heads to the warehouse store, selecting a suitcase that he ends up putting Grace in. I remember the chill that went through my body when I saw him look up at the camera, and you could just tell that he had killed her. And was taking her body out to disposing of it. And then he gets up early the next morning to head out to bury her.
Cool, calm, and in control. Where's the evidence of panic?
There could have been this mechanism of manual asphyxiation which occurred inadvertently so as to cause death, and he didn't appreciate that and then panicked. That's kind of plausible until you start looking at the external evidence that you probably wouldn't contort her body into a suitcase that morning, take her some kilometres out of town and bury her in a shallow grave, and then come back, mop up, hire a rug doctor, vacuum cleaner. So there's a plausible defence narrative there until you start to look outside it as to what makes it implausible.
Miss Millane's lifeless body was with you in that room when you searched for and accessed 4 pornographic sites. These were not the actions of a man in panic, far from it. Your actions reveal a complete disregard for your victim.
The trial lasted about 3 weeks.
The jury went out on the Friday afternoon. I suppose within an hour or so, the jury came back with their verdict.
Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
And are you all agreed members of the jury?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Foreman. Please be seated.
Foreman, if you would. This jury, having found you guilty of the murder of Grace Emmy Rose Millane, you are convicted.
The verdict of murder today will be welcomed by every member of the Millane family and friends of Grace. It will not reduce the pain, the suffering that we've had to endure for over the past year.
I heard it on the radio and I literally just like burst out and crying like it hit me like a truck.
I called my mum before anything else. I was just screaming down the phone. I was shaking. I remember it was just, you know, it was a horrible feeling.
The biggest emotion is anger. How dare he put his hands on it? You feel a bit guilty. You know, maybe we could have done more. She should have been safe.
No one in this country, unless they were out of all communication with the modern world, could not have been aware of these events.
Hundreds of people across the country are preparing to gather to pay their respects at candlelit vigils for murdered British backpacker Grace Millane.
Firstly, I cannot imagine the grief of her family and what they will be experiencing and feeling right now. And so, on behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that.
Out of this tragedy, the Millane family have started the Love Grace campaign. That's getting handbags and then filling them with items for the victims of domestic violence. And when I speak to Gillian, you know, she tells me that there's handed out over 10,000 handbags. Now she describes that to me as 10,000 smiles. That is so touching. One of the things that comes out of this is that, you know, women should be allowed to do what they want without having a sexual predator do what he wants and taking her life. You hope for all hope that another person doesn't suffer the same fate or family go through the same ordeal.
She hoped to meet someone, she hoped to have a good time while she was travelling. And I think that because of what happened to her, people are more aware. They're aware that this person they're talking to over the phone might not be who they say they are.
I think we're trained to walk with our keys in our hands and make sure we walk in brightly lit streets, and us not knowing what to do is not the issue. We shouldn't have to do those things.
I think of Grace all the time. I speak about Grace all the time. And, you know, I look at photos of us or think about memories of us. Grace was always someone that always used to say, you know, YOLO, like you only live once. Life is too short.